My daughter-in-law trapped me in a burning cabin for money. The first thing I noticed was the smell of gasoline. It cut through the clean mountain air. It was sharp and didn't belong. The second thing was the sound of the deadbolt sliding shut. Loud times, thunk times that made the cabin feel suddenly small. I remembered Zola's sweet smile from an hour ago, and it felt like a sick joke as I realized what was happening. I went to the door, my heart beating in my chest, and tried the knob. It was solid. It wouldn't move. I was locked in. In that cold moment, I knew this wasn't a family trip. It was a death trap, and I was the only thing between her and a lot of money. Let me explain. Because to understand the monster she became, you have to know the angel she was pretending to be. My name is Amina. I'm 62, and I've always lived a quiet life. I was a librarian, so I liked things peaceful and in order. My whole world was my husband, Bayo, and our son, Femi. Bayo and I started a successful building design company from scratch. We worked hard and shared the same dream. When Bayo died from cancer 5 years ago, my world fell apart. But my son, Femi, was my reason for living. He was everything a mother could want. Kind, smart, with a great laugh. When Femi brought Zola home, I was so happy. She seemed perfect. She was a creative graphic designer, and she was smart. But what really won me over was how much she loved my son. She looked at him with so much love and listened to everything he said. She was very good to me, too. She called me Mom from the very beginning, brought me flowers, and remembered small things, like how I took my tea. I really thought we were a family. Their wedding was one of the happiest days of my life. Then, just 8 months ago, my world fell apart again. A drunk driver ran a red light, and Femi was gone. The sadness felt heavy, like a weight inside me that made it hard to breathe. Zola and I held on to each other for support. She moved into my large city home, saying she couldn't be alone in the apartment she shared with Femi, and I couldn't be alone either. We were just two women, lost in our sadness. She took care of everything, the calls, the funeral plans, and she made sure I ate. I saw her as my daughter, my last connection to my son. I was so lost in my own pain. I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. I didn't really think about the inheritance. The business Bayo and I built had done very well. Femi, my only child, got his father's share, and his will left it all to me. He knew I would always take care of his wife. I sat down with Zola myself and promised her she would have everything she needed. This is our money now, I told her. Femi would want me to take care of you, and I will. You're my daughter. She cried and thanked me. Looking back, I wonder if that's when her bad idea started, because of what I promised her. I was offering her a secure life. She saw an easy way to get rich. About a month ago, Zola came to me with an idea. She seemed very concerned. Amina, she said, taking my hands, we're just so sad here. His memory is everywhere, and it's hard to breathe. I found this cabin online. It's in a remote place in the mountains. No cell service, no internet, just us and the quiet. A few days to just breathe, to heal. It sounded like a great idea. The city had become a reminder of a life that was gone. A trip away felt like what I needed. I agreed right away, touched that she was thinking of me. My sweet Zola was still taking care of me. The drive up was long. Paved roads changed to gravel, and then to a dirt path that went deeper into the forest. "It's certainly remote," I said. I started to feel a little uneasy. The cabin was even more alone than I thought. You couldn't see another house or another light, just us and the trees. I told myself it was just nerves. My sadness had made me jumpy. Zola was very cheerful. She played happy music and talked about hiking and reading by the fire. When we got there, the cabin was simple but nice, with a big stone fireplace. It looked perfect. That first evening, she made a big fire and opened a bottle of my favorite red wine. We sat there, and she kept filling my glass. I remember feeling sleepy from the long drive, the wine, and the warm fire. Then she started talking about money in a very casual way. She said some bills were adding up and that work was slow. Of course, I told her not to worry. "Zola, I told you I'll take care of everything. We're in this together." She looked at me and smiled, but it was a cold smile. It didn't seem real. It looked like she was planning something, and it made me shiver. "I know," she said, her voice smooth. "You're the best mother-in-law a girl could ask for." A little while later, she stood up. "I'm just going to get more firewood from the porch," she said. "You just relax." I nodded, my head feeling heavy, and closed my eyes, listening to the fire. It was the last peaceful moment I would have. Section 3. The Inferno. I must have fallen asleep. I don't know for how long. I woke up to the smell. Not wood smoke. It was a strong chemical smell. It was gasoline. My eyes opened wide. The room was hazy. I was confused and got to my feet, feeling dizzy. "Zola?" I called out. There was no answer, just the crackle of the fireplace. I went to the front door to get some fresh air. My hand touched something new, a heavy deadbolt. It wasn't there before. I felt a chill. I tried the doorknob. Locked. I shook it, getting more frantic. Nothing. I ran to the back door. Locked. The same kind of deadbolt. I started to panic. I turned to the windows. She had put new locks on all the windows. She had planned everything. "Zola!" I screamed, my voice full of terror. "Zola! Let me out!" The only answer was the wind. Then I saw it, a flicker of orange light under the front door. Black smoke was coming into the room. The fire exploded with a loud times whoosh asterisk. The gasoline she poured on the porch caught fire. The whole front of the cabin was in flames. I looked up at the smoke alarm. It was silent. She had turned it off. Of course she had. Thick, black smoke poured in. It burned my lungs and my eyes. I started to cough, deep coughs that made it hard to breathe. I remembered something from a fire safety class at the library. Stay low. Smoke goes up. I dropped to my hands and knees. The air was a little better on the floor, but it was still poison. Crawling across the floor, I felt trapped. The fire was roaring, and the heat was intense. I had to get to the kitchen for water. I made my way to the kitchen, pulled myself up to the sink, and turned on the water. I grabbed a towel, got it wet, and pressed the cool, damp cloth over my mouth and nose. It helped me take one more breath. I felt the back door, like the firemen in my memory said to do. It was already very hot. I couldn't get out that way. The cabin was tiny. I had no options. Then I remembered the small bathroom window. It was my only chance. I crawled back out of the kitchen. The heat was getting worse. The paint on the walls was bubbling. I could hear the house groaning like it was about to fall. I found the bathroom door. I put my hand on it. It was cool. The fire wasn't in this little room yet. I went inside, shut the door, and put a mat under it to block the smoke. I had only a few seconds. The window was high on the wall. I'm not an athlete, but I was desperate. I felt a new strength. I used the toilet as a step to reach the window. The lock was rusted shut. I pulled and pushed, but it wouldn't open. I looked around for a tool. I saw the heavy soap dish. I grabbed it. I screamed and smashed it against the window. The glass cracked, but it didn't break. I hit it again and again. On the fourth try, a hole opened up. I didn't care about the sharp edges. I broke away the rest of the glass. A piece cut my hand deeply, but I didn't even look. Smoke was now coming into the bathroom. It was now or never. I pulled myself up. The window was very tight. I twisted and pushed, scraping my body through the small opening. For a scary moment, I thought I was stuck. Then, with one last painful push, I was out. I fell onto the cold, wet ground. I lay on the ground, crying and gasping for air. I pushed myself up and looked back. The cabin was burning fiercely. It was meant to be my end. Then I saw faint red taillights far down the road. She had lit the fire and just driven away. Section 4. The Ghost in the Woods. I wanted to run and scream for help. Then a clear thought hit me. She thinks I'm dead. But what if she comes back? She was so careful with her plan. Wouldn't she come back to check? That thought saved my life again. I was hurt and in shock, but I felt a cold anger inside me. She was not going to win. I ignored the pain and dragged myself into the dark woods. I found some thick bushes about 50 yards from the cabin. I could hide there and still watch. And so I waited. It was the longest night of my life. The hours passed slowly. The fire burned, then started to die down. The cabin roof fell in with a loud crash. I was shivering from shock and cold. The pain in my hand was a constant reminder of how I escaped. Just as the sun started to rise, I heard a car. It was her. It was Zola. She got out with a flashlight. She pointed the light at what was left of the cabin. She didn't look sad. She looked like she was checking her work. She walked around the cabin slowly. Her face was lit by the glowing embers and her flashlight. I saw her expression. It wasn't sadness. It was a cold look. She was making sure the job was done. Then she did something I will never forget. She pulled out her cell phone. She took a deep breath and dialed. I was close enough to hear her. She put on a perfect show of being hysterical. 911? Yes, help, please, she cried. Our cabin! My mother-in-law and I were here. I went for a walk. I got lost, and I just got back, and it burned down. Her voice cracked. My mother-in-law, Amina, she was inside. I think she was sleeping. Oh my God, she's gone. She's dead. That was my signal. As she stood there acting like a victim, I stepped out from the trees. I was covered in dirt, my clothes were torn, and I was bleeding. I had climbed out of the grave she made for me. I let her see me. The woods was silent. Then I spoke. My voice was rough but steady. "Looking for me, Zola?" The phone fell from her hand. Her act fell apart. All the sadness disappeared and was replaced by shock and terror. She looked shocked, like a hunter who sees its dead prey get up. She started to stutter. "Amina, oh my God, you're alive! I was so worried. I saw the fire and—" But it was too late. The show was over. I walked past her, looking straight into her eyes, and bent down to pick up her phone. The 911 operator was still on the line, asking, "Ma'am, are you there?" I put the phone to my ear. "Hello?" I said. My voice was calm and cold. "This is Amina. The woman my daughter-in-law just said was dead. Please send the police and an ambulance. I have quite a story to tell them." The flashing red and blue lights of the police cars and ambulance arrived. Zola didn't say another word. She just stood there, her face pale with defeat, as they put her in handcuffs. Her perfect plan had failed. There was a lot of evidence against her. My story was the first thing. Then there were the new deadbolts on a rental cabin. The fire expert's report proved that gasoline was used to start the fire. And then there was her computer. Greed makes people careless. The police found her search history. How to set fire that looks accidental. How long for wood cabin to burn down. Inheritance laws after spouse's death. The last piece of evidence was a life insurance policy she had tried to take out on me. She had faked my signature and made herself the only person to get the money. It didn't go through because she made a small mistake on the paperwork. I spent 2 days in the hospital. I was treated for breathing in smoke, small burns, and the deep cut on my hand. The cuts and burns hurt, but her betrayal hurt much more. The woman I had called family, the woman I had comforted, had tried to burn me alive for money. The trial was long. Her lawyers tried everything. They said she was not thinking clearly because of her sadness. They tried to say I was a confused old woman and that I might have started the fire myself. But there was too much evidence against her. I had to go on the stand, look at her, and tell the jury everything. I didn't cry. My voice was steady. I just told the truth, and the truth was scarier than any story. The jury took less than 2 hours. They found her guilty of everything. Attempted murder, arson, and fraud. The judge gave her a long prison sentence. The news cameras flashed, but I felt nothing. There was no joy in this. There was justice, but it didn't make me feel happy. It couldn't bring my son back. It couldn't erase the memory of the fire or the cold smile of the killer who had lived in my house. After the trial, I couldn't stay. I sold the house where I raised my son, the same house where his killer had lived with me. I sold my part of the company. I packed my books and pictures of Bayo and Femi, and I moved to a small town on the coast, hundreds of miles away. A place with no bad memories. My life is quiet again, but it's a new kind of quiet. It's the quiet of someone who went through fire and survived. I volunteer at the local library, surrounded by stories again. But now I know that the worst villain can be the person you trust the most. I learned something from all this. The fire was meant to destroy me, but it didn't. It burned away the trusting person I used to be. Now I am stronger. I've seen how dark a person can be, but I still choose to do good. I'm not just a widow or a grieving mother anymore. I am a survivor. This story teaches you to be careful and watchful. You never know what someone is hiding behind a smile. If you enjoyed my story, please like, subscribe, and share for more amazing stories on Stories with Neoma. Let me know what your experiences of betrayal have been. I would love to hear from you. See you in the next story. Bye.